Really excited, again, as I mentioned, because this panel is, at the end of the day, we're talking about, are you reading the right metrics, right? Like all about insights-led engagement and if they are reading the right metrics or not. So we're about to find out now. So I have a question. Let's get this panel started. So I have a question that's to all of you. What do you think, what advice do you have, right, for brands that don't build a story around data? And they only take like the face value of it. Like what is your advice on decoding boring data into actual actionable insights? Again, ladies first. I'm gonna let Cindy go first.
Well, maybe for me, I understand that data is not for everybody. Maybe they know that it's important, but they don't really understand. Some people just don't understand the essence of it. But for startups, we understand how important data is. It helps us with knowing our customer behavior and up to creating final projections for next year maybe. And at the beginning of the stage, I know it can be overwhelming. There's like a lot of this data that maybe we don't know, or maybe we don't know where to start. What we did in Pasar Now was that we talked to our investors and we were discussing about what key metrics that we should see. And then we can start focusing ourselves in that key data or metrics and the other data down the line. And then we realized that with all this data, it's going to be hard for us to read it by ourselves.
Of course.
That's why then we hired our data team early on and provide them with the technology and the tools that they need. And therefore, as management, we just need to see the data from that dashboard and to find what's the problem, what's the opportunity, and what's the solution, and what's the plan and strategy next.
Okay. Pa Untung, what do you think about that? What are your thoughts on it?
In marketing there is a phrase called consumer insight. So data and insight is actually, commonly we use facts. It's not the same as insight. So insight is a fact. It's a cold fact. Fact is a cold, it's a cold thing, while insight is a warm fact. So for example, when I work for Rumah 123, we have one client, which is one of the biggest property developer in Indonesia. And then he asked us about data on, they planning to open a residential area in East Jakarta. And then we provide the data. That's actually my second week working for the company. And then the data showed that, and our head of sales is presenting the data saying that, Pak, this is very good opportunity because there are no apartment within 10 kilometers range from the land you have. It's actually quite risky to translate the data into those kind of perspective, because it can be translated as, yes, this is a very good potential because you have no competitor, but on the other hand, you can translate it into how if there is no market. That's why there's no player there.
Right.
So I think data is just data, it's number, and it's very dangerous to picture, to see from a very subjective perspective. That's why we need insight. So in our tech, you have data is good, insight are better.
Yes,
I think this is something very relevant.
Yeah.
So numbers is just numbers. It shows the what, but it doesn't really tells you the why.
Yep.
Insight tells you the why.
Yep.
And as marketers, we have to be able to understand and also to articulate the why. Then when the data is actually going to the different direction, we know why it's happened instead of, okay, it's just work, then that's it.
Yeah. So I think understanding the why and what's the mindset behind the user's behavior is what you're saying. That's important. Okay. Malana, what about you?
From my side, I think for brand who do not create story from data, stay there because data is confusing. You know, you don't want to go anywhere. But just kidding. So just take insight. I agree with Cindy and I agree with Pak Untung also. Take insight. Data diets, it's the most important thing. When COVID strike, data is booming, right? And then everyone see data is, whoa, it's spread everywhere. That's why I create this data team at ruparupa.com to take action only for important data. So it's really important for every company, every brand to see the data in itself for their insight. And also, please call MoEngage for another exciting insight. Thanks for me.
Thank you. And Pamalana, while I'm at you, while I have you right here, so you know how many marketers basically discredit vanity metrics, right? So, however, this could be actually coined as supporting metrics, you know, to the bottom of this funnel, right? To measure the performance-based metrics, right? So, considering your expertise and research, like, what are your thoughts on the impact of these vanity metrics?
So vanity metrics, I think this term I think 5 years ago, everyone hear this term, vanity metrics. If I'm a marketer, I'll be happy with a vanity metrics because it's kind of good numbers, you know. We have a good traffic, we have a good followers in social media, but then there's no engagement. There's nothing for our business. That you have to be careful of that. But every vanity metric, you have to deep down search inside what is the most important, and then I don't know. Maybe everyone here knows about vanity metrics, but doesn't know how to dig inside that metrics, because every data is important. Even vanity metrics also important if you know how to use it, how to dig down that data. I think that's why please look out the vanity metrics and then take more deep into it and then create an insight from it. I think.
Thank you so much. So Parama, let's move on to you. Back to the first question, if you have any advice, you know, in building a story around data.
Without data, can you build a successful company?
No.
Actually, you can.
Oh.
Apple is very famous. Steve Jobs was famous for not believing in all the market research data. And then I once heard Travis Kalanick, the founder of Uber, said that almost 200 investors that he pitched to in the early days of Uber said that all the data does not support your conclusion or your assumption that a company like Uber will become big. Airbnb is also the same. But you're not Steve Jobs, you're not Travis Kalanick, you're not Brian Chesky from Airbnb. So chances are data will definitely help you.
Yeah.
But what's more important, when I say all these stories about not believing in data, to give you a context that at the end of the day, consumer matters. And if you have vast resources to be able to understand what the consumer wants, Steve Jobs is maybe 1 in 10 billion character where he can actually kind of predict or know what consumer wants.
Right.
But again, chances are we're not Steve Jobs. We don't know what our customers want. And without data, can you try using the Steve Jobs approach to create a good product? You can. It will take you a lot of money, a long time. And if you have that kind of time and you have that kind of resources, then go for it. But for most of us, especially startups, we don't have that kind of resources. We have limits on our resources. We can only do so many things in the 24 hours a day. So data, this is where data comes in. Can it be really helpful for you? It can, if you look at it at the right way. If you only focus 100% on the data, it can backfire. I always say look at 80% from data, and then 20% you can, because especially in the startup world, technology world, things can change really, really fast. Like that. It can go boom very, very fast. Surprise everyone.
Yeah.
And we cannot, a lot of people will say we saw that coming, but that's historic data. You look back.
Yeah.
But there's no data for us innovators and technology people who wants to look forward, right?
Yep.
So the best we can do is using data to kind of eliminate that every chance for us to be able to get all the help we can get to kind of predict the future.
Right.
That's where data can really help.
Right. Okay. Thank you. Thank you for that insights. And again, while I have you here, right? So, I mean, as we all know, at Daily Social, right? I mean, has stressed upon educating marketeers and creating awareness via content marketing. So, there are a lot of metrics, right, that marketeers use, as you mentioned, to also, to see the success of their content, right? So, how do you measure that? Because not all the time it will always show like the success, right? At times you will come across failures. So, how do you read these metrics? And as a marketeer, how do you like decode this?
To be very honest with you, we've been collecting data on startups in Indonesia, I think since 2015, so 7 years now.
Okay.
And we tried to come up with a mathematical model that kind of predicts the probability of a startup to become successful, right? So we analyze the founder's background, the early traction, fundraising, investors involved, advisor background, all these kind of data points that we kind of collect to determine whether we can come up with a mathematical model, and we can say with 90% certainty that this company A has 80% chances to become very, very successful in the next 3 years, for example. But to be very honest with you, that's an ongoing, is an ongoing process. And what we learned so far is that when it comes to technology, again, it's 80-20, the Pareto principle, I think is very applicable here. You can use data for 80%, but the rest is very arbitrary. There's timing, there's all these other factors that, for example, like in the next 5 years, we'll be talking about something that we haven't even been able to comprehend today, right? There's going to be something very, very new that no one really knows today. So this kind of factor plays important role when it comes to data. You cannot predict the future, yes, with data, but data is still important because it helps you understand what happened in the past. Right. And I'm a big believer that history repeats itself. So it's always good to understand what happened in the past because chances are it's going to happen again.
Okay. Yep, it makes sense. I mean, I agree with you on, like 5 years ago, we would never imagine we'd just click a button and we'd get vegetables
3 years
delivered
ago,
to our house.
no one thought that we would be buying a JPEG of monkeys for millions and millions of dollars.
That's
right?
true.
Also furniture.
And furniture's online, yeah.
All right, thank you, Bob. So while we're talking about, again, 3 years ago, none of us would ever imagine grocery shopping being so easy, right? So, Cindy, my question to you, right? Pasar Now is a mobile-first grocery platform, right? So, was this always the plan, or could you like deep dive into the metrics that were translated into the insights, and also what mobile-based metrics do you attribute the success and failures of the campaigns that you run in this year, especially?
Okay, for the first question, why are we using mobile first?
Yeah, and was that always the plan for Pasar Now? Yeah.
As an e-groceries whose the main customers are from Indonesia, we saw the demographic data that everybody has cell phones, everybody has mobile phones, but not everybody use laptops or computers. For example, our B2B SME mid-low customer, all of them have cell phones, but with the very minimum quota and phone memory. But then we are trying to cater to their need, and that's why we are creating an app that is very easy to download everywhere, even though you have a very small quota, and even though you have a very minimum memory on your phone. That's why it has always been the plan for us. And then the second question
was what are your thoughts on, the metrics, right, that you have? So, like, what are the metrics that decided you to be, for you guys to be the leading mobile-first brand?
Okay. For the metrics for our campaign,
what would you attribute to the success of it?
to the success, okay.
Yeah.
For our metrics, we have 2 point of views. Number one is when we are trying to attract the new customers, and then number two is when we are trying to retain the customers. For the new customers, our key metrics is the number of registered compared to the number of new active user.
Okay.
So we see those two key metrics for our new customers. We want the new customers not only registering, but they're also transacting through our apps. That's when we know we're successful.
Okay.
And then for the retaining customers, we see our cohort metrics, which is transacting customers month after we get them into our app. And to push that success, we also want to see their average basket size and their frequency. So those three will be our key metrics for the retaining customer.
Okay, and that's the success. Any failures you would like to share with us?
Yes. So when we're trying to attract the customers, we use digital campaign, for instance, from Instagram. And when we sell this one product, we accidentally choose the wrong target.
Oh.
I know, and it costs quite so much. And at that time, the competitors was quite aggressive. And from that, not only it's affecting our costs, it's also affecting our registration number and our active user number, of course. Yeah.
Okay.
So you can't have that.
Okay. I hope you have fixed that now.
Yes.
Okay.
Yes.
Thank you. Pa Untung, what did you think about what Cindy just said? Any resonance to you?
Is it hard to comment on competitor? Yeah, I prefer not to comment.
Okay. Cool, then, Pa. Then I have a question for you, right? So, given your background, right, Pa, in behavioral marketing, how much control do you think AI has, right? Like, how much do you think AI has and control, and how much control should AI have to making decisions for you?
Okay, for me, AI is just the tools. So it's like you have a knife. If you cannot cook, then you cannot cook, even if you have the most expensive knife in the world. So AI works by trying to replicate how people think and behave, and people who design the AI has to be the one who understand people. That's why when you don't understand people, you don't understand business. There is a very popular case. You can search anyway in YouTube. Try to search Tricia Wang. Tricia Wang is an ethnographer working for Nokia in the past. She actually the one who remind the Nokia BOD that, you know what, I have done my ethnography study to our consumer, and we found out that actually we are in danger against the smartphone business. And then the Nokia BOD said, no, we have the big data showing that our business is totally fine. But what happened now? I think it's only, 3 years after that conversation, Nokia is gone. So Tricia Wang is also the person who introduced the terminology of rich data. So rich data is a combination between big data and also small data. What is small data? Small data is actually, in terms of the quantity, it's small, but in terms of the depth, it's have the rich flavor of why people do things. So human are human, we are inconsistent. That's why, we run retention program, right? Loyalty program, because we are inconsistent, right? So if we rely on data, which is a snapshot of a history of or today's behavior, it will not guarantee that the same person will continue using our product or behave the same, like before.
Absolutely. Pa Rama or Pa Maulana, do you agree with Pa Untung?
Yeah, of course. The simple thing. Yeah, because AI is important. Yeah, but yeah, I really agree with Pa Untung. Yeah, it's we use AI as a tool also.
Okay.
We create something, we creating and then modifying everything using that tools and but still for Rupa-Rupa it's customer first. So everything, even though using AI, but still we want to touch customer more personally.
Okay, makes sense. And so Parama, I have actually this goes out to all of you. What are some benefits that you have seen by taking the insights-led engagement approach for customer engagement as opposed to using traditional methods?
Yeah, so I think it makes us more competitive. And I think this is one thing that I'm also angel investing in a few startups and, in a highly competitive industry, let's just say that. And what these early, very new, very green founders assume is whatever the North Star metric of my competitor, that's also my North Star metric. That's what they measure, that's what we measure. So, and that's, I always, tell founders that, or people in the technology companies, each company has their own objective. Even, Pasarnao and Sayurbox, sorry. You're literally there, so I'm just pointing at the closest example. Like, most people think that they're competitors, but I personally believe that behind the screen, they're not exactly head-to-head because they have two different business models. Therefore, they measure different things. And the supporting metrics also different. Although vanity metrics probably is going to be the same, followers on social media, traffic, app downloads, and all that stuff, is very similar. But, technologies like AI and all these technology companies that is, providing all the tools, they can help you achieve that, but you have to know what or where your target or your destination is. Right? It helps you to get there, but you have to make sure that you really want to get there. Where do you want to go? If you want to go there, we have all the cars. You can choose trains. You can choose, all different modes of transportation. But if you want to go to Bandung and then you take the same car, you can stop at Bogor, for example. That's not going to get you to where you want to go, right?
Yeah.
Because every founders, every CEO, every company has different objective, have different destination, have different goals. Therefore, the metrics, I think it's very important that you align all these metrics, and it's easier said than done, yeah?
Of course.
I mean, it took me at least, I think 5 years to really determine that, actually my goal is to come here, therefore I should measure these things. I mean, when we started as a media company, it's very easy to become our competitor, right? And there's a reason why we survived for 13 plus years and still going strong for 13 plus years, even when our competitors raise millions and millions and millions of dollars. And, a good friend of mine once, back in 2016, gave me a call. Like, I just secured the budget of $3 million to be your competitor.
Oh.
So heads up. He's a good friend of mine, so it was a fair warning. But he's no longer here now, that company. So, and people say, new competitor, very crowded industry, blah, blah, blah. But we measure different things. Our business models are different. Although we look like we might be competing, but we really not.
Are not.
Because we have different goals, different objective, and different vision of the company.
Okay, makes sense. And did you hire this friend of yours?
I cannot afford him, unfortunately. Someone just gave him $3 million. I can't give him $3 million. So.
Pamalana, what about you?
So I think more, for traditional way, it's about personalization for me, right? For customers. Like Blibli said, it's more personalized, or even though company have a different business model, but they know the customer, they know how can create a personalized message for customers. So now we create some new term actually, hyper-personalized. So everyone want to see every customers. So I think for decide from the traditional way, I think it's still every metrics needs to look at, and then that's gonna create more personalized for your customers. You know your customers, even though we are competitors. No, I mean Cyberbox and Pasarnao is competitor, but you guys know your customers, right? And then to make them personalized, and then they own the brand. That I think more relevant rather than the traditional way.
Okay, thank you. So,
Sorry, can you repeat again the question just to make sure I understand correctly?
Just wanted to understand, like, what are the benefits that you have seen in taking the insights-led approach as opposed to traditional marketing efforts?
Yeah, I think when we talk about all of us here is trying to understand how to form a habit of consumer to use our product, right? So we have to understand the person first, and then their bias, etc. And then the second is actually the context. For example, yeah, I like to share some example. There is one a very legendary example that been taught to the I think all of the behavioral science student. It's actually the case of economic magazine. So they provide three options of subscription. The first one is actually web only, which is cost them like 65 euro. The second one is print only, cost them 125. And then the third one is actually web plus print, which is 125. So the second and the third option are actually the same in terms of pricing, but what they get is actually the second one is just print, and then the third one is print and web. And then the result is actually 68% choose the C option, and then the rest is choose the A version. So the B version just 0. Then if we just see this kind of case as a data, then okay, let's get rid of the second option, and then that's actually what they did. So they removed the second option, but eventually the result is actually changing. Yeah. So 58% choose the A option, which is 60 euro, and then the rest choose the C. So it means that even if it is 0, then it changes the context, and then it changes how people behave. That's why when we want to design how people behave in our app, how we can create a habit forming design for them, we need to understand the context, and then also there is a terminology called choice architecture. Choice architecture is actually, this is all the CLM guys need to understand this. It's actually designing architecture means to architect a choice, to move people to choose the choice that will bring benefit, both customer and also the company, rather than the other. So we can create that if we understand the people. It's all about insight.
Okay, thank you, Pa. That's quite an insightful story you shared there. So Cindy, can we quickly go over you, because I think we're running out of time.
What I want to say is we're at an era of experience economy, well, where the customer's decision is based on, is this, if I buy this product or if I buy this service, what will I experience? Yeah. Or can I post it on my social media? And you cannot give a better or great or even excellent service without data. And all these brands, like Nike and Adidas, they're competitors, like me and Pak Untung. We might be competitors, but each one of us are racing to give a better experience. What is a better way to react to what the customers need than to see the customer insight, So I think that's why it's very important for us to create a strategy.
Yeah, so understanding what the customer is looking at and what they need, as opposed to just blasting multiple campaigns like traditionally how we would do.
Yeah.
All right, thank you so much. I think we're out of time. I have time for one question from the audience, if anybody has a question for any of them. Okay, I think we have one question. There. Thanks, Saurabh.
Sure. Who had a question? You had a question?
Hello, hi all, thank you.
Hi.
Thank you so much for the opportunity. So my name is Fitria, I'm from Lazada, Indonesia. So I actually have a question for the CMO and the CEO up there. How you actually embed the insight that you have and the data that you have to search for fundings, maybe, but in some of our particulars, maybe budget allocation. Thank you.
So, anyone?
Okay, let me answer that question. Cynthia, is it? Cynthia, okay. Thank you for that question. That's very a good question. When it comes to creating a strategy for whatever it is, yeah, more fundraising, more anything else, it always starts with the goal. What's your goal? And defining the goal is very important because, well, that's basically where you want to go, right? My goal is to achieve X in X time span, right? So creating that, you have to break it down into different subsets of more tactical achievements, more smaller achievements. And when I create my strategy, with the team, these subsets of the things that we are more tactical achievements always has to be supported by data. We cannot just blurb things out like, okay, I want to be a unicorn in 6 months from now, for example. Well, technically you can do that, but it's not going to be nice, kan? So I think it's very important that all these information, even your goal, needs to be supported by data. Is it achievable or not? And how to achieve it? And even the tactical level also same. For each tactical activities that will support the final goal, we have to be supported by data. And credible data, yeah, not I think, or like whenever we have a meeting and say, I think, like you think, I don't think so, right? So, or I assume, like those kind of words shouldn't exist in the boardroom or meeting room. Always have to be data supported. And it has to be a credible data, whether it's internal data or external data. So I think it's incredibly important to have all these sources, or just some companies have the luxury of having their own research team, which is good. But I personally believe that everyone in the team, from staff level, mid-level, up until the executive level, needs to have that perspective of whatever is coming out of my mouth, it has to be supported by data. It has to be data supported. Like, it's not just going to be some random things. It has to be data supported. Do you have the data for it? Can you show me the numbers? How do you get that data? How do you get that number? Can you justify it? So I think those kind of important questions needs to be always constantly be asked in a fundraising setting or any kind of strategy setting.
All right, thank you so much, Pak. With that, I think we're running out of time, so I need to close this panel. Thank you so much, everyone here, for joining us today. And for the audience, if you guys have any more questions, they'll be around the ballroom. So thank you.